Hello, this video is inspired by watching a recent YouTube conversation between musicians James Blake and Brian Eno, in which they discussed what Eno called the arsehole chord. In this tutorial we'll have a closer look at this chord structure and I'll present various alternative voicings and chord modifications. As a regular reader of Music Radar and musictech.com, my curiosity was triggered when seeing this article in September 2023, which was referring to a YouTube video where musicians James Blake and Brian Eno discuss what the latter describes as the arsehole chord. I did not know what they were talking about and set about to further investigate this intriguing harmony that James Blake used in his song Retrograde. I studied the characteristics of this incomplete extended chord, which may also be considered a tetrachord pitch class set, and looked into alternatives to reduce its dissonant character. If you enjoy watching these tutorials and would like to support my production effort, you may do so through a PayPal donation or become a patron. The links are in the video description. Let's have a closer look at this ugly and best avoided harmony, according to Eno, that is. I watched the conversation between both musicians, in particular the fragment where James Blake describes this dissonant chord structure as used in the song Retrograde. I put the link to the article and the video in the description. So here is the arsehole chord, a tetrachord, a set of 4 pitch classes represented in a keyboard diagram, on the pitch class disc and in staff notation. James Blake tells us how he starts with the G major triad, then moves the right hand triad root pitch G to a semitone above, that is the G sharp or equivalently A flat. Thus we obtain a diminished triad on top of a dissonant root and shown here with the pitch class G, also in the lead. From now on, I shall call this chord the Enochord. What makes this chord structure highly dissonant is the exposed minor ninth interval between the root G in the bass and the A flat in the next higher part. This is probably the reason why Brian Eno dislikes it. The 4 pitch classes G, A flat, B and D are a transposed form of pitch class set 418, with pitch and interval content shown at the top. I presented tetrachord set dissonance characteristics in this episode from a series I uploaded in 2019. I discussed dissonance level classification systems in earlier videos on this channel. In particular, I have used the 10-level system proposed by Ludmila Jolela before. This diagram shows how the move from the G major triad to the tetrachord set 418 corresponds to a dissonance degree leap from level 1 to 9. This classification is based on the fact that the Enochord contains a tritone, a 6th semitone interval, and has the exposed discordant minor ninth interval. Search for and listen to the original song by James Blake. Let me say that due to his choice of synthesizer pad timbre and his great production skills, I did not experience the Enochord occurrence as highly dissonant at all. I admire Brian Eno for his meaningful contribution to music and art, and his intellectual insight. I do respect the chord structure choice of any creator. It is his or her artistic decision. I can only observe my personal response and then start to reflect. Listen to my poor man's synthesizer texture rendering of the Enochord progression before starting the Ruminations. The chord change is stated twice. Let's focus on the highly dissonant minor ninth interval in this Enochord 5-part voicing. Here is the open discordant minor ninth between G in the bass and A flat in the upper part. Orchestration has a significant effect on the perceived dissonance level. I already mentioned how the timbre used by James Blake affected my perception. Here is the setting for low strings. With exposed dissonant interval, the tension level rise is obvious. Setting this interval for low brass has a similar effect. Both are great for creating tension and suspense. The effect in the brass section is slightly more outspoken, I find. And here's the full Enochord 5-part setting for brass section in a 2-layer setting with 4-part harmony over G bass pedal point. When transposing this voicing to the next higher octave and using woodwind orchestration, the same dissonant harmony sounds a lot shriller. The upper layer harmony is set for 2 flutes and 2 oboes. In the octave doubling in the bass we hear clarinet and bass clarinet. And here's the combination of mid-register oboe over clarinet, playing the open minor 9th interval. What I wanted to demonstrate here is that, although in theory of harmony this interval is classified as the most dissonant, the choice of timbre and register, either in an electronic music or orchestral context, does affect the perceived tension level. Here I demonstrated the effect of a single moving voice over a pedal point at mezzo forte to forte level. But simultaneous attacks, note duration, dynamic level and articulation selection will also contribute to the tension. Therefore, disapproval or consistent rejection of the Enochord to me is an oversimplification. In this section I'll show a few modification options that will render this dissonant harmony more palatable. I'll reduce the dissonance level by inserting an additional pitch in the minor 9th interval. The tetrachord pitch class set disc representation shows the dissonant minor 2nd interval between G and A flat, and the other intervals, mainly thirds. The widest interval is the perfect fourth between G and D, and there we find options to add a fresh pitch class that will reduce the overall dissonance level. But before, consider an even simpler solution, which is octave doubling of the bass part. Here's the process in staff notation. Root pitch class G is doubled at the higher octave. This closes the gap between the minor 9th to pitch A flat. And now we have obtained a somewhat less dissonant minor 2nd interval. Use this approach in the full harmony and obtain a variable density setting with 6-part voicing of the Enochord. Listen to the orchestrated version for brass section and compare this with the original voicing with open minor 9th interval. This alternative voicing is based on the original tetrachord pitch class set. Find out for yourself why doubling the A flat to the lower octave does not reduce the overall chord tension level. Let's proceed with more options. As James Blake and Brian Eno discuss the dissonant harmony in a jokingly fashion, the latter mentions that while he dislikes this chord type, he recognizes it as a jazz-style harmony, saying it with somewhat noticeable disdain. Let's think along these lines, and in order to find the next modification, we interpret the Enochord as an incomplete extended chord. The G-sharp diminished triad over G in the bass is equivalent to the G7 flat 9 chord, but with the characteristic minor 7 over the bass omitted. In jazz arranging classes, voicing this extended dominant chord without the characteristic chordal function 7, the pitch class F, is most unlikely and would ruin the typical jazz idiom. Which leads us to the obvious option of adding a new, fifth pitch class and insert the F between bass and minor ninth. The result? Closing the gap yields two consonant intervals, while smoothing the highly dissonant original. An atonal pitch class set interpretation would be in terms of a 5-element set. Notice that we now have obtained a transposed inversion form of set 531. A multipart voicing of the full extended G7 flat 9 chord thus becomes In Schillinger system terminology, this progression may be labeled as constant root variable tension. Both chords have root G, and we move from a major triad to an extended dominant chord with highest chordal function flat 9. So here is the typical jazz brass section voicing that I guess made Eno chuckle. Omit the 7 for special coloring and personal style, but definitely use it in a jazz context and as a means to control the dissonance level of this voicing. I could have tried the pitch class F sharp to fill the dissonant interval gap, but decided not to use that option. Find out for yourself what the effect would be in terms of dissonance control. Instead, repeat the same approach for reducing the dissonance degree, that is, filling the gap between G and D with a new pitch class. We obtain an extended chord in thirds, the E7 sharp 9, or equivalently, the inverted, transposed form of pitch class set 532. We may write this as a polychord with two major triads, G over E. I recently uploaded a tutorial on writing music with this polychord type. On the left you see the progression from the G major triad to the polychord. Notice how the exposed minor ninth has become a stacking of a major sixth and a major third interval. The chord root movement is a non-diatonic R3I, a minor third down, which may be considered a Riemannian transformation. For an overview of neo-Riemannian theory, watch this series of 4 tutorials. And here's a synthesizer texture setting of this progression, omitting the bass pedal point pitch G. In case you, like me, would rather prevent the minor 3 chordal function lying below the major third G sharp, especially in this low register, modify the bass part and introduce chromatically ascending stepwise motion, as shown here on the right. Obviously, now we have left the original Enochord. We move on to the next dissonance degree measure, another Polychord solution. When closing the gap with additional pitch class set E flat, we obtain a transposed form of pitch class set 522, and we may write this as a polychord with triads G major over A flat minor. The chord change from the G major triad to the polychord is shown in a variable density voicing on the left. Once again, we've closed the gap between G in the bass and A flat by inserting pitch class E flat, yielding the stacking of two consonant intervals, a perfect fourth over a minor sixth. We may interpret this as a compound third-order Riemannian transformation called the slide transformation. As the chord root moves up a semitone and the chord type changes from major to minor, the chordal function 3, the pitch B, has become the minor 3, the enharmonically equivalent C flat. Watch this tutorial for more on third order compound triad transformations. Here's a rendering of this progression with a set of synthesizers with a pounding pedal point bass and triad arpeggio patterns. In this solution I do not find the pitch class G in the bass, which is the major 7 chordal function in the A-flat minor structure, as disturbing as in the previous example, where it was the minor 3 in a sharp 9 dominant chord. Also, transposing the proposed voicing an octave up would prevent the low register chordal function 7. However, for still reducing the chord tension level further, we may modify this into a pure triad polychord progression by using a chromatically ascending bass. Giving up the original Enochord, I noticed an Andalusian flavor with kind of Phrygian modal character. We may have given up too much of the dissonance now. Here's a setting for synthesizers, band and horns that uses the stepwise bass motion. The final alternative implies insertion of 2 new pitch classes. When introducing both E-flat and C-natural, we obtain a transposed inverted form of 6-element pitch class set 619, which may be written as a polychord with 2 major triads, G over A-flat. Inspect the constant density 7-part voicing on the left. The root moves up a semitone in a non-diatonic harmony system. The bass leaps down to C natural, the chordal function 3 in the A-flat major triad. Again, we've given up the original Enochord voicing. However, we can bring back the pitch class G in the bass clef staff in either of 2 positions as middle parts, which is what I've done in this synthesizer texture rendering of the chord progression. Now the Phrygian flavor has become even stronger. I tried to reduce that impression by introducing 2 modal scales, a major mode over the G major triad and a minor mode over the A-flat major triad. In the score example you'll find melodic phrases and intermediate chords that will disguise the Phrygian association. Listen to this rendering for synthesizers and orchestral instruments. In this video you find my ruminations on the Enochord. I was intrigued and tried to find out why Brian Eno had a distaste for this dissonant structure. I investigated its properties and presented my findings in this tutorial. The dissonance level is, as always, affected by instrumentation, chord voicing and register. And as I said, I find nothing wrong with the James Blake original production that uses this chord. I do respect the artist's creative choice. However, there are techniques for modifying the chord, reducing its tension level. I demonstrated how inserting new pitch classes will close the exposed minor ninth interval. The extended chords in thirds and the polychord solutions were illustrated with short examples. For my Patreon supporters, there's a companion document with text diagrams and score excerpts. To be notified of new tutorials, please subscribe to the channel. In case you would like to support my knowledge sharing and video tutorial production efforts, find the links for a PayPal donation and to my Patreon account in the description. For more content, visit the website. Thanks for watching.